and I'm very glad to be here and with such a big audience for such an important topic. I've been working with nutrient recycling at the FHNW since 2009, so I think it's a topic that I know for a while. And I would like to give you a perspective you have heard now from EU, but there is also Switzerland and other European countries. Actually, what I would present is a success story. Switzerland is the first country in the world that has January this year passed policy making mineral recovery obligatory. I will give you some background how it came to this, what are the particularities of Switzerland, and I will present the legislation that has been passed and that is coming on solid waste and fertilizers, and some ideas about what this what developments this might put in motion. So if we look at the sewage sludge disposal in Europe, we have different paths. We have the landfill, application in agriculture, and incineration are the main paths. It's quite varied between the different countries, also different volumes, of course. And if we look at Switzerland, Switzerland is one of the two countries in Europe that have 100% incineration, together with Netherlands. And why is that? We are a little bit bigger country, not area-wise, but we have more inhabitants than Finland, for a comparison, 8 million inhabitants. And in our history, we prohibited landfill of organic materials already in 2000. In 2006, we stopped using the sludge in agriculture, and as you see, there are not many other paths to take care of the sludge than to incinerate it, and this is now the case in Switzerland. We have different paths of incineration. On the one hand, we dry the sludge, and then we use it in cement works, and it becomes then incorporated in the cement, the ashes. We also co-incinerate sewage sludge together with municipal solid waste, and we also have mono-incineration of sewage sludge. That's over half of the capacity in Switzerland today, and this is also a good raw material, the ash from this mono-incineration, which is today unfortunately landfilled. If we look at the flows of phosphorus in Switzerland, we have on the one hand already an existing recycling of phosphorus, as in many other countries. The animal manure represents about 30,000 tons per year, and it's used in agriculture, and on the other hand we have production of feed for the animals of about the same amount. So this is already a nutrient cycle going on. What is not yet functioning is using this phosphorus in the sewage sludge. That is 6,000 tons. Incidentally, that's about the same amount as we import every year as mineral fertilizers. And also another important stream that I won't talk so much about today because I'm mostly working with sewage sludge, but there is also the meat and bone meal, which is not used today. So these are the streams. And now I come to the legislation. We are not using the phosphorus in the sewage sludge, so we wanted to improve this situation. I already mentioned the past legislation, and what was passed in January was a decree that said we should recover phosphorus from these two waste streams, from sewage sludge and from meat and bone meal, with a transition period of 10 years. So this is recovery, but recovery is not enough. We take the valuable phosphorus out of the waste and transform it to some kind of material, but this also has to be used. So this is of course linked to the main market, the fertilizer market. So there are also planned changes in the fertilizer regulation in Switzerland. Currently we have sewage sludge, which is classified as a recycling fertilizer. So it's subject to the so-called mmm.fi, that's the recycling fertilizer regulation in Switzerland. And there it says, as already mentioned, that it's not allowed to directly use the sewage sludge in agriculture. It's also specified rather low limits for heavy metals for these recycled fertilizers. And the reason is that when we developed this regulation, it was mainly aimed at organic recycled fertilizers, such as compost. And for that it functions pretty well. But if we now want to recycle inorganic recycled fertilizers, these heavy metal limits are quite hard to reach for these materials. And this has put a damper on the development and implementation of inorganic recycling in Switzerland. So the Federal Office of Agriculture in Switzerland has decided to develop a new recycled fertilizer category for mineral recycled fertilizers, and it should be ready for 2018. And there we will have a higher level of phosphorus required, which is normal since it's more concentrated once it's no organics in there. Plant availability will be required, of course, and there will be contaminant limits which will be higher than the ones for the organic recycled fertilizers. And the potential materials would then be the sewage sludge ash or derivatives of that, meat and bone meal ash, and also wood ash. And they also want to stress, just as on the EU level, that the idea behind the recovery, recycling of fertilizer is not to we should be able to reduce the input of heavy metals to the soil, all in all. So it has to be comparable to the fossil fertilizers that we use today. So what will this set in motion in Switzerland? We have a forerunner canton in Switzerland, which is the Canton of Zürich. And they already started in 2007. Then there was a decision that they wanted to use the sewage sludge. They wanted to use the energy and the phosphorus in the sewage sludge. So they started planning. They made a pre-evaluation for a mono-incineration plant for the whole canton to replace their old solution. And they managed to negotiate that all the sewage sludge from the wastewater treatment plants in the canton should be delivered to this installation, which is not easy. Then they made a proposal, and it was voted, as many things are voted in Switzerland, with a record of 97% acceptance in Zürich. They decided to construct in the city of Zürich itself a mono-incineration plant. And this has been taken into operation last year successfully and is now working. So they are now producing from all the sewage sludge of the canton an ash that can be used as raw material for phosphorus recovery. So what did they do with the phosphorus recovery? In 2009 we worked together with them and had a look at available phosphorus recovery processes that could be implemented, and they further investigated the promising candidates, and they decided to support the development of a leaching process, and that continued until last year. And now they are piloting purification step from this leaching process, so they can produce phosphoric acid out of sewage sludge ash. And if successful, they plan to continue with implementation already now next year. That's the Canton of Zürich. If I now come to Switzerland, There is on the technical aspect, we have approximately 5 processes that could be used to use the monoincineration ash that we have. And there is also the question of the remaining routes of the cement route and the municipal solid waste co-incineration. Can they be combined with phosphorus recovery, or do we need to completely switch to mono-incineration of our sewage sludge? There are some guidelines will be in the upcoming implementation aid for the waste regulation, which is prepared by the Federal Office of Environment in Switzerland, which will contain best available technologies and yield requirements for processes, and also some guidance on plant availability required. There is also the cost, which was mentioned before. We have estimated the cost increase for implementation for sewage sludge in Switzerland of phosphorus recovery of 80% of the phosphorus, and it's still a broad range, but the cost increase would be between 1 and 45 million euros per year. And it would go with an investment of up to 380 million euros. So open questions are, who will take responsibility for the implementation? Should that be the incinerators? Should the wastewater treatment plants, perhaps, who produce the sewage sludge, be responsible for finding a solution? Or should it be private investors that can go in and invest in a new technology, a new plant? That is still open. And how will the cost be distributed? But the good news is, if we compare this 1 to 45 million euros, is already a very limited cost. If we compare this to the cost of wastewater treatment, it's in the order of a few percent of the cost of wastewater treatment. So we can upgrade now our wastewater treatment not only to clean the water, but also to recycle the nutrient for a moderate cost. And that's what I wanted to say to you. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anders. And now we will take questions. Yes, here on the side.
Thank you very much, Anders. Matthias Bergman, Baltic Sea Action Group. Good to meet you. Maybe this is a secret, but how is the leaching done?
It's done with mineral acids. You can work with sulfuric acid, for example, and so you contact the ash and the acid for a certain time, and then you separate, make solid liquid separation, then you have the liquid phosphorus. It's phosphoric acid, you can say, and then you can purify that if you want, or you can precipitate the phosphorus.
Okay, so it's let's say heavy chemicals, you would say, that kind of plant.
Mineral acids.
Yeah, sure, has to be. Yes. Okay, thanks.
My name is Ludwig Hermann from Autotech. I'm just adding a small comment. You're completely right. I completely agree with your presentation. But we recently discovered one aspect that may be of interest also to other countries, that actually the Canton of Zürich, the federal state of Zürich, decreased the cost of sludge treatment, and the additional cost that you presented for nutrient recycling is far smaller than the savings they did by concentrating, by finding a joint cooperative solution with all the, I think, 72 wastewater treatment plants that are cooperating now. So the result of this was a huge saving, I think in the order of 40%. And if nutrient recycling is added, you increase that or you reduce that saving from 40 to 38, for example. So this is an important aspect. I think this is also following the example of the Netherlands, and also for other countries. It's really important to find cooperative solutions, and not everybody is doing his own single activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. I agree to those numbers. That's also what I heard, and I think it's an important aspect. And when we make a transition, for example, from co-incineration or to mono-incineration, we will also need to construct new plants, which might be more effective than the previous plants. We can make larger plants, which are also more effective. So this way, it can be a benefit for all. Yeah. Thanks.